My name is Catherine A. I'm a Cultural Program Manager at the Department of Culture. I welcome you to the first Bermudian Heartbeats event of 2024. This is the More Than Sports Central Social Clubs, which is actually the second in a three-part series that the Bermudian Heartbeats program has put on. In 2023, we had our first one, which is the Western Social Clubs, and we will be moving east with our next one next year. I wanted to formally thank and welcome the Honorable Minister Daryl JP for coming and being enthusiastic about this program and the importance of social clubs to Bermuda, and the importance of highlighting their history in terms of in terms of the importance of the history of social progress in Bermuda, both for the Black community and also for the Portuguese community, as we'll find out. And I also wanted to thank the acting director of Sports and Recreation, Mr. Freddie Evans, for attending, as well as our director, Dr. Kim Dismont Robinson, as well as our very esteemed panelists. It's left to me to introduce Mr. Rajay Denbrook, who is a wonderkind and a treasure for Bermuda, who will be leading our conversation as a facilitator. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Good evening, everyone. As Kathy mentioned, I have the privilege of being the facilitator of this evening's discussion. That means I am going to invite you to speak, and I'm going to talk as little as possible, because this is not about me. This is about you all and the incredible clubs that you're representing and the history that they have. I had the privilege of being the facilitator for the first iteration of this with the Western clubs, and as a younger Bermudian, being able to sit with older Bermudians and learn through conversation is something that is extremely valuable to me. So I'm feel very genuinely privileged to be here tonight, serving in this capacity. I do not stand on ceremony in any way, shape, or form. I hate protocol with a passion. Most of the time I think it is excessive and superficial, so feel free to loosen up and to be yourselves. Don't feel too stush, don't feel the need to be stush. So the first thing I would like everyone to do is just go down one by one and introduce yourselves, the clubs that you're representing, and the capacity that you have with your clubs.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I'm Richard Ambrosio. I am the president of Vasco da Gama. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for choosing to have your event at Vasco.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vaughn DeRoy Butterfield. I say that here because everybody knows me by DeRoy, not Vaughn. So officially, I'm here as the president of Leopards Club. Our club founded back in 1949, and in fact, next week we'll be celebrating our 75th anniversary.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Troy Lewis, and I'm the president of Young Man Social Club. We're actually going into our 100th year coming up, but we can't find the history to exactly say when it is, so sometime in the 20s. So we're actively trying to find that out. But thank you for having this, and this will be a good night.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Roseanne Corrine Tucker. Like DeRoy, I'm known by a few. I am currently the secretary of the Queen's Club. Our president is here tonight. I've known the Queen's Club to be around since the early 1900s, I believe. They started just across the street at the Moose Club, and then in the early 50s they moved to where they are now. And by an act of legislation, we were allowed to use the Queen's name. So, and that was in 1957. So I've been a member for over 20-some plus years, and I'm still enjoying it.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Willis Deal, and I'm here to represent the West Nassau Sports Club and also the Dandytown, which is a part of the Western Star Sports Club. I am a past president of the Western Star Sports Club.
Thank you very much. Before we delve into the incredible history of the clubs, and I think there are over hundreds of years of history combined between each club that touch on the social, political, and economic life of Bermuda in so many different ways. But before we go down that incredible rabbit hole, I would love it if each of you could give us a relatively quick summary of your club's current activities and programs. And within that answer, could you give your personal opinion within the activity of your clubs in 2024? What do you think is the most valuable impact that your club is having within everything that you're doing right now? In any particular order, yeah.
Okay. One of the things I should have said in my introduction is that the Western Star Sports Club has been around for over 100 years. They go way back to like the early 1900s, like before Cup Match. Dandytown, on the other hand, was formed in the 70s, the early 70s. So the two clubs merged in the 90s, early 90s. So when I speak, I'll be speaking on both. So with Western Star, so we play cricket and we play football. And I'll just say this real quick. One of the reasons the two clubs merged is because we were using the same facility. And what happened was, you can imagine, you're coming up to cricket season, everybody wants to train for cricket, but football is still going on, and vice versa. So we decided to merge the two clubs when Dandytown actually got promoted to the Premier League. So we decided to merge the two clubs. So in cricket, we have teams in just about every division for youth. And we all, in football, we have, oh my God, we have over 200 children that play in our programs. We are a community club. We are a community club. And we're not like some clubs that would turn some players away. We take whoever comes. And our main aim is to try to mold these young men and young ladies to be productive citizens in our society. Now, does it always work? Well.
I've written that, so right now, thank you. And what I heard in that answer was, the thing that resonated with me the most was inclusion. It doesn't matter who shows up, you take them. And with that focus of, we're going to help make you the best person that you can be through our athletic programs. And sometimes, and I'll be quiet, I think we take for granted that you do these things for a reason. You know, it's not just to, people get caught up in the sports or the athletics of it. It's like, no, it's about character development. And then that idea of embracing everybody who comes along is extremely powerful. So thank you for that answer. Anybody next?
Okay, the Queen's Club. The Queen's Club has been a part of the Hamilton City community. And we are more of an indoor sport club. Our focus has been on the pool, or billiards, or snooker arena. At the time, I would even call us the Mecca of pool. We are working in tandem with the Bermuda Pool League Association to grow it. And in that, we have a relationship with some middle schools where we are hosting the children to come and learn about the game and the strategy. And for the most part, we are inclusive in that our tournaments involve prison officers, Warwick. We just go out to other clubs to come and be a part of this growth in this particular sport. And we want the children to know that, you gotta apply your algebra and physics and all those type of things to the sport if you want to really learn how to play the game.
I love experiential learning.
Yes, sir.
I love that. Don't you guys have a boxing school downstairs?
That is a private entity,
Okay.
but yeah.
But it looks like you might have knocked it. You might have.
Yes, that is a private entity there, a boxing club. I don't know anything about that.
Got it.
I should maybe go there. But yes, it's been there for quite a bit. And there's also a restaurant in that building.
Oh, the Old Silver Spoon is a part of the same.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we're actually trying to hold on to that particular club at the moment. We're under threat, but we hope common sense prevails.
This is it. And we'll be returning to that actually when we talk about any perceived challenges that the clubs feel they may have going forward. So thank you very much for bringing that up. And again, in your answer, I heard this wonderful youth focus. Anybody in particular next?
Yes, Troy Lewis again from Social Club. Just, Social Club is one of those clubs that really is its name, social. It's a club for social activity, and that could come in many forms. The club initially was founded on the premise of people, mostly black men, getting together and discussing the politics of the day, discussing how they can help each other and move forward. Sports is a part of our club, so we have youth and adult sports, but it all depends on what the members want to do. So we're not focused on the sport, but sports is a key part of drawing younger people into the club. So it's I would say the more mature persons in our club or the older members, they have an opportunity to then impart some of their knowledge onto the younger people when they're around the club, and most things about how do you collectively move forward and not individually. So majority of social club is upbringing is allowing anybody to come in, letting them feel equal to anyone. So we normally would have our prices very low in anything that we do, so that no one will feel excluded because they can't afford it. And then allowing anybody to speak because everybody has value in from their experiences and from their knowledge. And sometimes just because you might have the most papers behind the initials of your name doesn't really mean that you have the answer to those questions. And so Social Club has always been based on that, allowing everybody to feel equal and be a part of something that can help you move forward.
It gave me goosebumps. And focus on collectivism, number one, is amazing. And I feel like each club must have that focus in some way, but they have this very intentional focus of allowing your members and your participants to come into an active and practical understanding of the importance of collectivism and moving forward together. And in an egalitarian way, you take out the hierarchy. And because I find in Bermuda, many of our spaces are very hierarchical. And if you come in and you're a youngster, it's you're there to be seen, not heard, et cetera, et cetera. So to know that mechanism of sort of superseding hierarchy is very much a part of the ethos of Young Men's Social Club. I think that's beyond valuable. Thank you so much for sharing that. Right, Mr. Butterfield?
Good evening. My name is D-Roy Butterfield, President Lepers Club. I've been a member there for about 15, 20 years, somewhere in between there. And the club itself was formed by 5 black men who were looking for something to do to break segregation in Bermuda. Back in 1949. Yeah, 1949 when this happened. Actually, that's 3 years before I was born. So it's interesting because the club has provided a cushion or a hand to those that have needed it in the black community. We provided scholarships to the young people who were going to Bermuda College. We also had a lunch program for the Central School. We provided a venue for entertainment, where a lot of times the black community couldn't go to various hotels and other venues. So we provided a opportunity for you to come to the club and be a part of the entertainment and the enjoyment of looking to the black entertainers perform for the black community. Not very much a sports club, although our constitution says that we should be. I think the most we've probably played in sports is maybe cards, euchre, and various other things like that there. We have gone through 75 years of change. The 5 members that originally started it are not around anymore. With a large number of older members have passed on. Just over the last couple of years, we've tried to do a membership drive to get a younger membership going, because obviously without the young membership, the club can't continue on. We bought a piece of property there. It was actually a house, and converted it into a clubhouse. We have a building next to us called the Plaza, which was a guest house, and unfortunately it got caught fire some years ago, and we haven't actually repaired it as yet. But that is one of our major things that we want to achieve over the next few years, is to restore that building there, because it has a lot of history in it. We've also been able to, with the new membership we had a membership drive a couple of months ago, and we're doing another one this month. And we want to make sure that the older people and the young people of the club are communicating, so that the history of the club cannot die. It needs to be continued on through the membership and through the things that we are providing to the community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butterfield.
Good evening again, everyone. I just really wanted to just reiterate the fact that you're all here in our club. It is always a point of pride for us to be thought of as a location that would be able to host a discussion such as this, and especially appropriate because 2024 is the 175th anniversary of the first Portuguese immigrants that came to Bermuda. And I'd like to sort of think of this as the first in a series of events that we hope to have over the course of the year. So again, thank you. In addition to being here in my capacity as president of the club, I also wanted to just highlight that I'm also the chairman of the Portuguese Cultural Association, which is tied very much at the hip with Vasco. So Vasco itself was founded in 1935 as a space where Portuguese workers could come together, feel a sense of home. Oftentimes when you have immigrants that are in a foreign land, there's a desire to have some degree of familiarity. But it's also tried to do its part to help integrate Portuguese people into our new home over the course of decades. So we've always taken a strong degree of pride in the fact that, yes, this is a place you can come, you can read a Portuguese newspaper, you can listen to the Portuguese radio, you can watch Portuguese football games, but we're also a club that takes pride in the fact that we took part in the very first Bermuda Day parade. And so we wear both our hats, with our ancestral land, but also with our current home, and we wear those hats with pride. In terms of what we do at the club, obviously we have a bar, we have recreational activities, that's the sort of easy stuff that we can point to. But we also, through the PCA, the Portuguese Cultural Association, we run a Portuguese school. Historically, this was something for the children of work permit holders who were here to learn their language and then ultimately reintegrate back into their society when they go back home. now we've branched out and we have people of all sorts, of all types, of all races, of all social backgrounds who are now learning Portuguese. We have 40 kids in our program right now. We started an adult program. We also have our men's senior football team, but more importantly, we have our youth program, which now has 150 kids. We have a Vasco scholarship as well that's directed towards the children of our members. And sort of circling back to your first question about the most, the sort of impact and the most impact that I think our programs will have, you'll see that there's a bit of a common theme between the school, the youth program, and our scholarship is investing in the youth. And I think that's a critical challenge for any club, right? When you have the sort of demographic challenges that you have, and we're feeling that. And so we really want to put an emphasis on the youth and to ensure that, we have a pipeline of not just members, but also very active and civically engaged Portuguese Bermudians that can continue to play that role, being ambassadors of their ancestral land, but key members of the Bermudian community.
Wow. Well, in particular, and well, from all five of you, Vasco da Gama in particular, I think what you said, the incredibly salient thing you said about creating a space where immigrants could come together, be with each other, but also to support them integrating. It's a very two-pronged thing you were doing, and some people might even consider it antithetical. But it's very forward-thinking, it's so sensitive, and it's so nuanced, and it's so necessary. And I think it's so lovely that, the Portuguese language program in particular, it started as a purely sort of utilitarian thing. You have to speak this, but now it's branched out where people, non-Portuguese persons are coming in and learning. If that isn't an indication of progress, I'm not sure what is. I'm gonna ask you a question, and then I think we can continue it all the way down. We can do a bit of a thought experiment for a second that can start taking us down to talk about the history. And right before I do that, and like I said, there being a social, political, economic, we heard some clubs focus on athletics, some don't. But it's all about creating a space where people can come together to, number one, feel a part of a community, and number two, to improve themselves. That's the common theme that I hear through all of these things. And I grew up at St. George's Cricket Club. And if that club was not in my life growing up, I would not be the person who I am today. I come from a family of athletes. I'm embarrassed to say I don't play any sports. I went into the arts and that's and I run my mouth and I dance and I sing, I do that stuff. But I spent so many Saturdays down in that club and Sundays, at the bar when I shouldn't have been, running around getting up to trouble. But the things that I learned being there, I will carry with me for the rest of my life. So with that said, and in your answers you bring some more about your incredible history as well. If your clubs did not exist, what do you think? How do you think the communities your clubs served would have suffered? And I use that word suffered on purpose. So I ask it again. If your clubs did not come into existence, if your clubs did not come into existence in the social, political, and economic context that they came into existence in that said, hey, you need to exist, they didn't come into existence, what do you think the communities that they serve would be like in 2024 now?
So I'll take a first stab. Always a bit cautious when you use the word suffer like that, and you sort of try to think, okay. But I think it's fair to say that if we didn't exist, if I may be so bold as to say, maybe Bermuda's cultural tapestry wouldn't be as rich as it is today.
I think that's very fair.
I think because of the role that Vasco did play over the years to help integrate the Portuguese people in Bermuda, it's fair to say that you could have just seen a pipeline of immigrants back to Portugal. And perhaps our membership over the years and over the decades wouldn't have necessarily felt more of an emotional connection to their new homes. And it's something that's always a conundrum when you deal with immigrant communities, right? It's the sort of balance between your interest in your ancestral land and your current home. But I think we played a pretty pivotal role in terms of bridging that divide. And I don't want to make it sound like it's always been that way. I mean, you go through ups and downs, and there's some periods in our history where we've been a little bit more closed in, and other periods where we've been more actively engaged. But I do feel that, not to say that Bermuda isn't a rich repository of its own culture, but I think it would have just been a little bit that much less benefited from our presence.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I have one of my members here is actually the education team. Did you want to come up and do this, or you want me to continue?
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Yeah, not at all. Your name, please? Mr. Lawrence Samuels is the Education Officer of Lepers Club? Or History and Education Officer of Lepers Club. Yeah, please, I can even grab you a chair.
Thank you.
Oh, you're gonna get up?
Okay. So if you can join us, Mr. Samuels, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Yes, you're up. Good.
Yes, good evening. My name is Larry Samuels, and I represent our Lepers Club and on the Education Committee, as said. Our chairperson, who would normally be here, George Scott, is president in the hospital right now, so I'm just taking his place. But on that question of what may have not been, how we may have suffered, I think in some ways with the blacks as well as Portuguese being excluded from being in the hotels and all the service places and stuff like that as guests, as opposed to service people. I think we would still be at that point where, we have a terrible division between races, and so we would still be fighting that battle that was right up in your face before. We would still be fighting that battle now. I can't imagine if that would have happened, because I think predominantly that black people all over the world just fight for what it is they want, and they wouldn't have allowed that to happen. So we probably would have been suffering in a different way, but we certainly would have tried to gain ground no matter what, even in this time.
So as for Social Club, I'll first start off that Social Club was one of the clubs, and I'll talk on the sports era, was one of the first clubs to have an integrated team. So allow whites to play on a black team. Before there were white teams and black teams, there were white leagues and black leagues. And Social Club was one of those clubs that were the first to have an integrated team. Not only were they the first to have an integrated team, they were also the first to allow women to play on a man's team. And not a man's, but that was actually a youth boys team. And again, they were one of the first clubs to allow a women's auxiliary and for women to then take positions on their management. So if those type of things didn't happen, then it may have been nobody to follow suit because there would have been no president in front. So that's just on the sports and then the administration. But the location that Social Club is located, which is on Angle Street and Princess Street, which is right in the heart of where everybody says is the bad area. And I stopped short of, I guess I should say it, but I guess I want to knock on wood, that Social Club is one of those places in that area that has not had any issues. No trouble, no fighting, no. This is like the jam inside that allows those people to act differently. They can let their guard down and be able to feel comfortable and safe versus when they are out on the streets, and some of them have to have their, guards up. They have to act like everything, like nobody could take me on. And I think we've allowed a lot of people that were going down the wrong path to come in and get educated on how to get out, how to find other ways of using your time so that you can actually maneuver from where you feel that because I grew up in it, I have to be in it, to finding how you can actually use that same energy to get out. And so I look back, and I'm just young, but my whole family is part of the club, so I've grew up in the club from young, and I've just seen the transformation of people older than me, my age or younger, that probably wouldn't be here today if they didn't have Social Club.
Wow.
And I every year I say to my family, because I spend a lot of time community service, and I say, next year, I'm gonna stop. I need to step back.
How many years has it been since you said that? First said that.
I think more than I could count. But, it takes a toll on you, and sometimes it becomes part of your life, and sometimes you spend more time with those that need the time than with your own family at some point. Because once you feel that your home is safe and somebody actually needs you because they have nothing else, and you have a supportive family like I have, they're the ones telling you, no, you need to go.
Oh.
And because, not that they don't want me home, but they don't want to see someone else fall by the wayside. So it's, I say that because just this year, a young man came to me, and I haven't seen him for 10 years now. And I was like, oh, where you been? He's like, oh, well, I've been in England, and he was one of those that were caught up in the beginning of gangs. And he said to me, and I'll tell you, just the day before I said to my wife, this is definitely it, I'm gotta stop. And he said to me, I just wanna come and tell you, if it wasn't for you and the club, I wouldn't be alive today.
Wow.
And it was scary to hear that. And I know a lot of clubs have the same sort of stories, but these are the things that these social clubs, members clubs, and community clubs do, because people need to see how to go forward and already being told what happens if you stay in the past. Give you the right paths doesn't mean that you're going to lead down there, but if you don't know the right path, then how are you actually going to travel it?
What was the question? Okay. When in trying to be prepared for this today, I went on AI, chat AI,
Chat GPT.
just to see what was out there in the social media. I believe if we, as part of our object and purposes of the club, to encourage and promote social intercourse between members and other associations and stuff, I believe that we would not have broken the racism that this club is particularly known for, or the gender equality, because we do have female presidents that we've had, where I don't see that a lot in other community club situations. We very much are social there. We try to encourage participation. Every month, there is something for our members to be involved in. And I just, like I said, I don't believe we would have furthered the breaking down the racial barriers if we hadn't existed. I myself, I can speak personally, I went there as a young girl because at the time I think war vets and Colony Club existed, and we were always, that's the white clubs, So finally, I was asked to come to Queen's Club. And I remember telling Herbie Brangman, I don't know if you know Mr. Herbie Brangman from Somerset, but I remember telling him, "You must be crazy. I'm not joining no white club," And he actually paid for my membership and said, "Come on," because I was shooting darts at the time. And we wanted to form a female team, a ladies team. And he wanted to make sure that I, along with my friends, would become a part of this club. And as I said, I am very grateful to him because it opened up my eyes at the time that, whites are all right. And that there is a place for you to grow in the city and feel comfortable. I mean, one of the things about Queen's Club is you walk in there and you're like, you don't have to worry about someone asking for a cigarette or solicitation, because we have a sign there is no solicitation here, so you know up front what the deal is. And I just think that if the club didn't exist there, that a lot, because it's so central and because it's so available, even our prices as membership is affordable. So I think we wouldn't have the racial equality or the gender equality that we have.
Thank you very much.
I'm invading to answer this question.
All right, Mr. Beal.
Since you asked it. But I want to attack it from two different perspectives because we deal with cricket and football. So I told you that we have been around cricket-wise for over 100 years, the Western Stars. So as my other panelists were speaking, I started to think about Bummy Simons, Georgie Dyer, Mackie Simmons, Randy Butler. I started to think about the Mendes brothers, Roger Lavrock, all of the guys that played for Western Stars, that play a cup match. And I'm going to throw this out there so that you all would know this. But there was a year, there was 1 year in cup match in which Western Stars sent at least 10 of their first team players to cup match, one team or the other. So I think about all these guys and I say to myself, would they have been that good? Would they have even played cricket? Because at that time, most of the players played both sports. So would they have been that good? Now, when I come over to Dandy Town, I'm going to give you some history now. So we talk about, I grew up wondering why, I'm from Spanish Point. When you go from St. John's Church to the end of Point, that area over time, over years, has produced some of Bermuda's premier football and cricket players. I grew up in a time with football where I couldn't understand why everybody in my neighborhood, and mostly everybody in Point, was for PHC. But PHC, in my mind, is instrumental in Dandytown being formed. So you had Key West Rangers that became PHC. When PHC moved to Warwick and took the field up there, what happened was there were a lot of young guys who were playing for PHC juniors as they were called at the time, who didn't have any transportation to go to PAC to train, so they stopped playing. So they decided to form a team. Montiel United it was called, because most of the players were from Montiel, and in fact most of the PAC players were from Montiel. So they formed this team called Montiel United. They came out, first year, they got promoted, went to what was then the first division. They played up there, they got relegated, and then they failed it. So the question is, where would we be without the club? So here's what happened. There was a lapse of a few years. And one day, some of the guys were having a conversation. And the question was asked, well, the statement was made, hey, let's do it again. And it meant form another team. And so we formed what is now Dandy Town.
Okay.
And the team hasn't, in reality, it took them 10 years before they got promoted to the Premier Division, and they've been there ever since. So when I think about the question that you asked, I think about all of the players who came through. I'm going to start with the professionals. Nikki Rouse, who is now professional. Connor Smith, Reggie Lamb. We have the Dandy Town Club has produced many professionals and many semi-professionals in the game of soccer, football. So when I think about that, I say, well, would these guys have been playing somewhere else? Maybe. Maybe not. But that's a question that we will never be able to answer. But what we do know is that this is the club that they came out of. So when I think of our two major sports, football and cricket, we have produced some talent in this country. And let me say this. If it were not for Western Stars, watch this, Somerset wouldn't have the cup now.
So we're starting the debate now. I said,
Now,
I'm not yet.
hear me now. I'm
Go
going to give it to you.
go
I'm going to
ahead.
give it to you. I'm going to give it to
Go
you.
ahead.
Somerset's current coach, Jeffrey Richardson, is a Western Stars boy.
Okay.
Alroy Rattery, Luther Wilkin, Randy Butler, who shaped these guys, made them into productive citizens of society.
Mm-hmm.
And all Jeff has done is taken what he learned at Western Stars and taken it to Somerset and, well, as they say, but cops come back and join us. But in answer to your question, so when I think about that, I think about all the players that have come to our program who may not have had the opportunity. Some of them may have gone to other clubs. Clubs may have rejected them. So.
Mr. Doe, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody. I said at the beginning that I felt very privileged to be the facilitator of conversations like this. Because you hear the legacy, you hear the pride, and I think something that's lost on a lot of young Bermudians is what had to happen in order for us to be able to enjoy I'm going to use the word freedoms loosely, that we enjoy today. And if people did not come together to support each other 50 plus years ago in a way that was just necessary, we would not be here today. We drive past these buildings, we hear the names of these sports teams, and we have no idea, just number one, the values that are at the heart of these spaces. The stories, the thousands of stories that are in these spaces, and the lives that were changed because people were not only in these spaces, but participating in these programs. So I just want to say thank you for your work. Thank you for continuing these legacies because they're so important. I mean, I heard Mr. Lewis in particular. You said you're in a spot that is known as the bad area. But to know that, I mean, you used this word transformation. then it's stuck with me. It's such a powerful word. Transformation makes things possible. Transformation opens doors for people. Transformation allows people to see things that they didn't see before. And to know that that took place because you created a space where people could come together, connect positively, and be sincerely supported, made that possible for so many young men. Vasco da Gama, I mean, I can only imagine. Same with Lepers Club, same with Queens Club, and then Mr. Lewis just gave us, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Dill, sorry, just gave us just a snapshot of what they've done. So your work couldn't be more important. And I wish I think we could be here for 5 hours talking about all of your history and all of the stories that you have, and I wish we had that time. I'm gonna read something very quickly. It's from this book called Black Clubs in Bermuda. Obviously, we do not have a Vasco da Gama is not a black club, but those same dynamics are there. You're a marginalized community, you had to come together to support each other. So there are definite parallels. I want to read this bit right here. And so this book was written back in the 70s when Frank Manning came to the country. He was a sociologist, an ethnographer, who came and did this research project for a year on the island's black clubs. And I want to read this bit right here. Sorry. Oh, this is the cover of the book. This is my tattered copy that I use everywhere. I just bought a copy so that people actually knows what it looks like. Still, another reason why clubs are popular is that they make available what my informants usually described as an, quote, outlet for relaxation. The use of the term relaxation is perhaps deceptive. In the parlance of clubgoers, it means, quote, release rather than rest. Hence, relaxing is synonymous with blowing off steam. The need for this kind of release has become acute in recent years. The spiraling cost of living has forced the average working class black to hold at least 2 jobs. Thus, it is not surprising that one informant claimed he would have had a nervous breakdown from the pressures of Bermudian life were it not for the, quote, outlet provided by the club. Others said that if they had not become involved in the club, they would not have left Bermuda. They would have left Bermuda and settled abroad. So obviously that sounds like contemporary Bermuda, very much so. And so with that in mind, do you think that your clubs still serve that purpose, that purpose of coming together for not just rest and relaxation, but for like release, that provides relief to the difficulties that they're experiencing in their lives?
Yes, I think social club still does that because that's mainly the focus. And like I said earlier, the sports and all the other things that go on at the club is basically to enhance the people and the members and give them more positive things to do, not the other way around, where sports is more important. Let's get sports teams so we can have members, and it's a difference. I look back and say that the 4 founders of Social Club, they were beyond their time, because the things that they were trying to instill in people and trying to guide them is what's actually needed now. And because, as it said in the book, more black people had to hold 2 jobs and now some of them 3, that it's getting lost because those people don't have the time to actually come to these clubs to actually learn. What they are doing is working so hard so that they can provide for their families and not understanding that they can actually do better if we all came together for one good purpose. And if they started to understand that, like they did in the olden days, so, you know, I heard these stories and I've been at the club that I can remember, I would say 50 plus years. And I haven't heard a day where you say, oh, I've heard all these stories before. There's always new stories. There's always something else that they give to you about what happened. But I look back and they say, you know, They got together. They helped each other. If someone was building, everybody would go and help. All they had to do, the person who was getting the house built, was provide food for them at the end. You know, they all put in. They all put things into the club, so the club is strong enough to always support those people who fall on hard times. And today, each person, or I should say not each person, but many people are trying to take those burdens on all by themselves, when if we work together, some of those burdens would be taken away. So the family raising the child concept is gone, and we need to find a way of getting it back. And if we can do that, then those people who are working 2 and 3 jobs wouldn't have to, because they wouldn't be paying for babysitting service, or they ain't paying for after school care, because the person who is home and retired are looking after all the kids in that area. So I say Social Club is still trying the hardest to get people to understand that you know, many hands make light work. All these sayings that when I was young, like, oh, whatever. But now, as I'm an adult, I can start to understand exactly what that means. And so we need to educate those people who are being educated by the internet and making their own assumptions on how to live, and start to get the understanding of how, if we work together and use all our heads, we will actually prosper much better and faster.
I mean, sorry, Richard. The amount of people who wouldn't frame the work of a social club immediately in that way, because when you're involved in a social club, I think it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly that that's the work that you're actually doing, no matter what you're doing. But I've never heard anybody say, using the social club model and the social club work to like encourage and support a renaissance in community and collectivism, specifically in how people experience raising children and the family structure. So using the social club work to support the family structure. I mean, if each club was successful in that, the impact of that across the island would be insane, in my opinion. But that's one of the biggest things I'm gonna take away this evening. And doing that work in that area in particular, it sort of amplifies the profundity of what you just shared. So I just wanted to say I wanted to run my mouth real quick.
And I just want to add that exactly what you're saying, when the social clubs are strong, communities are strong.
Yes, very good, Mr. Lewis, that right on time. Our motto at Queen's Club is, you're not joining a club, you're joining a family. And we try to, make people feel like, if you have any thoughts or you want to do something, this club is here for you, and please bring it to the table, The other thing, when I spoke about the AI just now, it went down, so I couldn't refer to it. But you just said about the social media. So out there in the social media right now is saying that the Queen's Club Incorporated in Bermuda is a private members club located in Hamilton, the capital of Bermuda. It says the club was established in 1970. Incorrect. Right? And it is situated in a historic building, not listed. And we do have a bar, various rooms for social events, which now have a pool table, a couple of pool tables in them. And private, and we do, like to host private functions. And it says it's a popular destination for both locals and visitors. So the thing that I want to go back to also is that sports, the Queen's Club actually became that because of the fans of Queen's Park Rangers. A lot of the members at that time were avid Queen's Park Rangers fans. And they went about getting the name the Queen's Club. because they couldn't use the whole thing. But in any event, they actually went and got a legislator so they can use that. So yes, even though we are now more of an indoor type sporting facility, our roots are in the outdoor football arena. And it also says that our name is the nod to Queen Elizabeth, but that wasn't the original concept for the name. What else would I want to say here? Yes, the Queen's Club is known for its traditional British colonial ambience and is often frequented by individuals from the local business, legal, and social elite. So that's out there in the stratosphere.
Yes,
Yeah, but it is very welcoming to all at this time.
all right, thank you.
We have to be, sometimes we have to be honest about when it comes to the black clubs. And from my perspective, when I look at what's taking place in society, we can't have a conversation about the black club without talking about what's taking place in society, because they somewhat go hand in hand. I have the opportunity to interact with schools. And I tell them a lot of times, about how we were raised. We were more social beings. Our children today are not social beings. We were raised, I tell people, like, when I came home, if I didn't do my homework, I couldn't go out. But I could hear all my friends outside playing. So what that made me do? My homework, so I can go outside and play with them. Today, these children, the technology has these children in the house. And so they don't understand what it means to have a rift with somebody and solve it, because they're really not social beings. And so a lot of these children use the club as a means, in some respects, to get out of the house. That's the bottom line. And so we in the club, we are always trying to mold them. Always trying to mold them. And the reality of it is, we are not going to win them all. We're not going to win them all. But we have to do what we can with those who are willing to follow us.
No, thank you very much. I'm going to come back to what you just said in a second. Mr. Ooh, I forgot your name, sorry. Samuel. Mr. Samuels. Zach, did you want to go next, or were you ready to go, Richard?
I can get up to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's a lot of interesting sort of themes, and I noticed that all of the previous speakers touched upon technology, and I think that is a nice segue to what I have to say. To your original question about whether Vasco, for example, still performs that function of release, I would say the answer is yes, but. And I think we're facing a number of challenges in terms of membership, retention, and recruitment, and what have you. And the reality is that we're competing with a lot of activities out there. We live in a very media-rich, content-heavy, hyper-connected modern society of ours, which, for better or worse, has led to a number of advances, but it also leads a bit to a fraying of the social, ties that are binding us. So that's a big challenge that we're facing. Thankfully, we're trying our best to meet that challenge, but it's something that I think we at Vasco, and I'm sure it's not dissimilar to the experience of a lot of other clubs, are having to, combat against those forces in order to ensure that we can still perform that role and continue to have the historic utility that we've had as a club within our community. So yes, but would be my answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Just on that, I wanted to, I wrote down a few things, points here, And I said, I wonder what is the collective or the ultimate goal or objective for community today. I think at the time that many of our clubs were started, 50 years ago or even more so, there was definitely this racial thing that was there. I mean, that was front and center. That was in your face. And for most black people, I think we experienced it. So that was the very thing that was right there. There wasn't a whole lot of other things that sort of got in the way. And so that brings me to the question of what are younger people, younger than myself, fighting for today as a community, and whether or not our club or our clubs can help in that. And of course, we have to understand, what the fight is. Fighting for equality, that was a central thing, right? And so that's where clubs were.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Now, for me, the ironic thing is this: the very thing that we were fighting against was this desegregation integration thing. In some ways, now seems like the very thing that we've become, because here we are. We're talking about black clubs, and then we say Portuguese. Like, okay, so where are we? Because years ago, that was the division: blacks, whites, and Portuguese. Where were Portuguese then, and where are they now in that? That line up there, and how have we progressed in that? We still got division of clubs, and I think part of that is the problem of sameness. We like to be in a company where things are the same, where people look like us and so on like that, and yet at the same time, we want to also be inclusive of everybody. And I think that's a difficult task. I think it's a real difficult task because human nature says sameness is comfortable, sameness is good. You know what I mean? In the animal kingdom, them other animals, they stay with their own kind. And we kind of look at that and think, well, yeah, that's what we should do. But in actual fact, that's the very fight that we have. Sameness, not versus, but sameness and inclusion at the same time. So I think that with our club, and I deem with any of the other clubs too, is that we should be looking how it is that we could be much more inclusive. We talked about males and females, we talked about blacks and whites and stuff like that, and Portuguese, but how well is that working? That's what I would ask people. How well is that working in the space where you are, in your club? At my club, we got upwards of 150, 200 members. Mr. Butterfield, our president, I don't know how many white folks are in our club, and we've been around for a while. White folks come to our club for various activities and so on, but that's sort of ad hoc. But how many are members? How many are there feeling the same objective that we are, who are members there now? So for me, from a sociological perspective, how are the people, the population of Bermuda, how are they being moved to be much more inclusive and to be much more helpful to the collective community as a whole? And that's my question. That's my observation. Even as we look at the clubs that we're talking about, and there, of course, we're only a few clubs. I mean, there's tons of them all over the island. So, how is that working, and what are we going to do towards, or moving towards that objective, if that indeed is our objective.
Hi, can I just piggyback on that? Because I find it kind of frustrating that when the management changed at Queen's Club from being primarily white to black, then a lot of the white members left the club. So I understand you're saying that you don't know how many white members. I think we could actually count and say, you know, a certain amount have left because it just changed the whole, it was like, we don't want to be here now.
Well, you had white members.
But yeah, but they were only white members. They were the majority.
Right.
And it was just 2, 3, 4 blacks at the time.
So
and now it's
so
changed.
what's the problem?
Pardon?
So what's the problem?
No, I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm just saying that the dynamic changed once the management became black.
Because there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I see that all of the answers you just gave, I wish I got the 5-minute warning about 7 minutes ago, so I think we have to stop. But I wish we could go on. So in a contemporary sense, okay, so when we're talking about the clubs, we're talking about these clubs exist because you had marginalized people who needed to come together. That, I think, and same for Vasco da Gama. I think that's fair to say. Unique, but the Portuguese dynamic was unique in its own ways. And that definitely want to acknowledge that. But for the black clubs, we all came together because we had to, for economic, social, political, ideological reasons. We literally had to. When you come forward into the present, there's still a need to. There's definitely still a need for the black community to be intentional about coming together to address its challenges. Because it's not white young men shooting each other in the streets, it's not white young men in gangs, it's not white people on financial assistance, and etc. These things continue to plague the black community specifically. And again, I will come, the Young Men's Social Club, and with Western Stars and Dandytown, you guys are doing the work organically. You don't have some kind of fancy plan with psychologists and sociologists telling you this is, no. They need positive relationship. They need good examples. They need consistency. They need safety. They need inclusion. They need standards. I'm 33 years old. I have 2 kids. They're 9 and 8. My big girl's about to go 10. I make sure that my girls feel connected with the people around them. They feel safe, everything, all the time. And at their young age, I see how it's benefiting them already. And it breaks my heart that not every child has that experience. And I take for granted that not every child has their experience. But the work of the clubs is literally trying to give the communities that experience. The title of this talk was more than just sports. I think everyone who has been here tonight, everyone who's going to listen to this, in the first 10 minutes of listening, we're able to go, wow, actually, this is obviously more than just sports. Not just in what you do, but also in values and things that you do. So as we move forward into the future, when we want to start talking about inclusion, how do we open up these spaces for everybody? For myself, when we're talking about inclusion, it's number one, authenticity. When you come into the space, you can be yourself, etc. But it's also about honoring the past. Because, and then I'm going to be quiet because we have to stop. When we want to say we live in a post-racial society, I think that's such a lazy thing to say. And such a very insincere thing to say. Race doesn't matter anymore. I think that's stupid. It's not true. Because when you can hold space for people and their differences, the relationships that you build and the community that you build allows you to change the world. I've seen it happen. I think a lot of people think inclusion means treating everybody the same, and that's no, heck no. So as we open up these spaces, and as we move away from an explicitly racially unjust past, and continue into this pluralistic future, as we welcome new people into the space, I think the first thing that has to happen is honoring the legacy of what they're joining. I think that's the first thing. That's the starting point for everybody. You can't come into this space and be like, oh, things neutral. Like, no, 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 no. This club was this for almost 100 years because of this, because of what was going on for 400 some odd years, etc. And now we get to do this. That's still a part of that journey and still a part of that story. I think that's a big part of the answer to that question. It's not about sameness. It's about like radical authenticity, being radically honest with ourselves. Then how are the clubs positioned today to help evolve the Black community out of certain mental and community habits that continue to impact us in 2024? And like I already said, I think, and we do have to stop, I think I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names, everybody. Mr. Lewis and Mr. Dill gave us a very broad, but very informal, but a very broad understanding of the answer to that question. And if you all go away and just reflect on what you two have spoken about tonight, I think we'll find the answer to that question. I want to go on. I had like 5 more questions, but I'm going to stop. Alrighty. So we're going to move on to questions now. Thank you all so much for your contributions and for being so transparent. The value of your work historically is obvious. The value of your work now is obvious, and the value of your work going into the future is obvious. Really looking forward to more young people becoming a part of the work. Oh, and this is last thing I'm going to say. Young people crave community. They do. We act like we don't. We think we don't. But when we're out here acting up, when we say we don't care about anybody, no, the only reason why we're acting up is because we want somebody to care about us. We want to connect with somebody. And I actually came off of social media about in December, because I was like, for a lot of reasons, I can't do this anymore. And like social media is that pacifier and gives the illusion of connection and community. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your work. Very happy to be here as facilitator this evening, and I'm gonna open up the floor for any questions.
Roger, and I hate that it sounded like it's the end, but we're opening up to questions if anyone has any. And I wanted to actually add, Roger and I were involved in a discussion with young creatives that would have been in their 20s and 30s about last year, and one of the comments that a young man made, and Generation Z, people talk about their terminology, etc., but one of the things that he did say was young people are looking for third spaces. And he made this point that young people go from work or school to home, and that they don't have what are third spaces in which they feel comfortable and are able to be truly themselves and make those connections, and that social media often lets them think that they're making them, but they're not making them in the same way. So people in Bermuda are looking for those third spaces, as they call them. Was there any questions from anyone here? Did you want to ask a quick lightning round question? Because I know you have a lot that, it was fun.
I do have a question. I heard a lot about segregation, black and white, Portuguese, and whatever else is there. My question is, how do we manage to keep the older members of the club and the younger members of the club and the members to come? How do we keep them in communications and accepting that the older members have been here for years? I'm new, coming in. I have my ideas that are 1,000 years different from what the current members are. How do we melt the membership so it is a membership and not a divided membership?
I'll speak on that, and I'm not saying that I have the answer, but I've been a part of being one of those people to I was one of those people that had to transition. So if anybody knows Social Club, they know that the Lewises have been in the club forever. And that's one of the families that helped to keep it alive. But what we have to find out is no matter where you are in the status quo, you have to first learn about why the club exists and what it stands for, and then come to try to make it better. And I find that in a lot of clubs, and I've been a part of a lot of clubs, many people are there for an individual goal and not for the progression and the longevity of the club in general. And so what we have to do from the older generation to the now and those to come, we have to find ways of bridging the gap of information and history. So I'll tell you, Social Club, and it would be remiss of me if I don't say, Social Club was a club that was exceptional in sports. Many people wouldn't know that it actually first sport was cricket, and they were one of the best cricket clubs at that time, and they used to play the cup match teams and then sometimes beat them. And a lot of the players went to cup match. But they were also the club in the 1960s is the best football club and had the best team that will ever be in football in Bermuda. I don't see any club ever being able to do what they done, and they probably won't be able to have the opportunity today. And that was, they went 3 years undefeated, playing domestic football and internationally. That means when international teams came and they played, they didn't lose to them either. 3 years straight. So I don't see any club being able to do that, and I'm not boasting that no one can do it. I just don't think that they're going to have the same opportunity to do it. So, but that's something that's probably never going to be done. But, you know, when I couldn't play for Social Club as a young person, and because of this. So, that is 60s, very good team. The 70s, very good team. They actually lost a youth program because no one could break into the team for 10 years. So none of the young players, the team was still winning so much that how do you change and allow someone else to get into the team? So the younger people trying to get into the team was very hard. And so a lot of clubs around here in sport, in football in general, in particular, have been gifted players that should have been playing for Social Club. So when they lost their youth program, so they weren't able to have youth in the club for 26 years. So success sometimes is also a demise. So I spent most of my youth sporting at Western Stars, Standing Town. So that's why I played, because I couldn't play for Social Club, although my whole family was from Social Club. We didn't have no youth team. So after I came back from school, my daddy at the time, my grandpa ran the club before him, and then my daddy was running the club. And I'm here as an adult in my 20s trying to explain to him why we should allow young people back into the club. And not that they were not allowing them, they just didn't have the focus on that at the time because the club was still doing very well. And so it took me 5 years to convince my own father to allow me to have a party for people my age in the 20s. And the reason he always says is that you want to have a party for what reason? And I just said, because I want to have a place for young people to come. But it wasn't enough until he started to explain to me, if you're going to start something, you need to actually have a goal in mind beyond today. And when he started to explain more and more about the club and why it operates the way it does, then I could see the difference in now me as being the president, how I then interact with the younger people, the parents of the kids, the new members, the people that just frequent the club, so that they can actually understand the establishment and the history of the place that they're in. and the legacy that has been in place so that they can learn to love the club and understand its values and take them on themselves so that when they do become a part, they pass something on about the club, but they don't just leave because somebody else leaves.
Yeah. So the way I look at it a little bit different. And as I said earlier, I talked a little bit about the societal problem that we have. And I believe that what we need to do as black clubs, especially those of us who play football and cricket, this is what I think. What we need to do, these players come to training. In order for them to play for our club, they have to come to training. And I believe that what we need to do is to organize events where, rather than these players coming to training, that the training is held elsewhere. For instance, at the club or somewhere where we can talk. And we need to invite the older members, or even just people within our community, to come and talk to them. See, in some respects, we fail them because for some clubs, I said for some, and I'm not even just saying that my club is not doing this, but for some clubs, when it comes to sports, they're only interested in one thing, and that's winning at all costs. And so if we are able to say, okay, the under 11s train on Tuesdays, well, this week Tuesday, the training session is going to be at this place. And we're going to invite Mr. So-and-so to come in and talk to them about the club. Because the more we instill in them the values and for them to see the positives that have come out of the club, the more they will probably say, you know what? Yeah, that's a good thing. However, we have to also bear in mind that it's not just us that's competing for them. It's not just us that's competing for them. They're being fought for in every facet of life. In every facet of life. The streets are after them. And so we have to try to be that community that was ours, that village that raised me, that village that raised most of us. We have to try to get people to be that village for some of those children, because for some of them, it's only the club. And if we don't give them what they need in terms of the positives, then the negatives are going to take them over in the street.
You said something right at the end. For some of them, it's only the club. I'm going to say it again. For some of them, it's only the club. It's their only community, the only group of people that are looking out for them to be everything that they can be outside of what's around them. You would hope that you weren't the only one. You would hope that we had a culture in Bermuda where that was just our culture. And in saying what you just said, you just demonstrated very clearly, I think everybody in this room would agree, it's not. That's not where we're at in 2024. We have a vacuum in this country when it comes to community that the clubs are uniquely positioned to fill. And all of you are filling it right now, in some way, shape, or form. And I would say maybe Vasco, Young Men's, and Danditana Western Stars in particular. Because it sounds like these three have the most youth engagement. So I was actually going to end with this question, and I think you've all answered it in some capacity.
Can I just go from that last question that we had?
About connecting, can we?
Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap up soon.
Yeah.
Just piggybacking on the idea of getting the the younger people to know about what has happened in the club from the older members. At Lapid's Club, being part of the education committee, what we attempt to do is each month we attempt to put together a presentation by someone either in the club or outside of the club who has a particular interest subject. For example, helping people to understand wills and estates, helping someone to understand bitcoins, helping people to understand what the union and the investment that they have there. So we're trying to put out information to the older person as well as the younger person. Mind, we don't have kids, we don't have young people, so everybody is really in a position where they're pretty much independent of quote unquote their parents. But we try to do that so that this type of thing would help the older person as well as the younger person. We could bring them in the same room and talk about these particular things, and that would help them also to understand a little bit more about each other as the questions are asked and as the information is given. So from our perspective, that's one way in which we would build a cohesiveness between the older folks and the younger folks.
Okay, so I had one. Are there any more questions from the floor? All right, I had one last question. I think you've all touched on it in some way. How do you think your clubs are uniquely positioned to address the challenges of the communities that you serve? So ask it one more time. How do you think your clubs are uniquely positioned to address the challenges of the communities and membership that you serve?
And then rapid question.
And that's in 45 seconds or less.
I think from Vasco's perspective, from what I call the sort of Vasco ecosystem, Portuguese school, youth football, it's the sort of breadth of services that we have and that we offer, and the sort of synergies that we can realize. The Portuguese school reinforces the Vasco youth program, the Vasco youth program reinforces the scholarship, and vice versa. So it's a lovely little virtuous circle that we have.
What I would like to do at our club is to encourage folks to be involved in the community. So the people that come from outside into a club and talk about a particular thing, then I'm expecting or wanting for our club membership to say, hey, you know what, I could be a part of that, because ours is not about a football or cricket or anything like that. It's more about doing stuff for the community. So if they hear things, if they hear a presentation that sparks their interest or whatever, they could be a part of that interest. But at the same time, still be part of our club, be a club member at Lapid. So what I'm saying is, the more information they get about particular subjects and so on like that, the more likely it is that they will find somewhere where there's a niche for them, where they could fit in. And Lapid's Club, as a membership club, would still be doing stuff that enhances the community around us.
Yes, I said it earlier about our positioning. And the thing is that Social Club initially used to own a property which was called Sports Arena, more known as Casarena Park. Everybody here today probably only knows it as BGA's warehouse. So they used to own that property, and that's where the sports field and everything was. But they sold it to buy the property on Angle Street and Princess Street so that they can be better connected with the people that they are actually trying to serve. And again, being close enough to Court Street, but not actually on it, gives those same people just a stone throw away to see something different and be able to act differently. And you find it, the same people that people might call gangsters or whatever on Court Street with their pants hanging down, when they walk into Social Club, you ain't gotta tell them they pull their pants up. They already know these standards and they know why they're coming around there to be different. They don't come in there swearing and shouting because that's not the standards. And so I believe, and I think many of social clubs have been strategically placed throughout the island for those specific reasons. We just have to make sure that we have the people there to drive why those clubs are put there and what they stand for to that community at large.
Uniquely. A lot of what I encounter as being a negative is management of clubs. Sometimes we vote people in based on personality and not on the mandate or something structural that they are identifying with their members. I believe that clubs are not really being run as businesses, and that too can hinder how you can help in the community. A lot of times it's, really difficult for the older member to want to do something that a younger member is bringing in. And then I've had the occasion where the younger member didn't want to do something different. So I believe that if we knew the mandate from the start, that we could teach it or put it out there in more avenues as people come in, and we can show them that this is what our forefathers thought about it, and how can we progress that, and so they would know that there's something to go forward to, I just would hope, even with this gathering, that we have the presidents here of clubs, that maybe something can come out of the presidents having a WhatsApp chat, that they can say, okay, we're having a euchre night, or we're having something, can you send a team from your club? Do some things that are more inclusive as we go forward.
I'll just say this in response to my friend's comments. In football, they have what's known as the President's Committee. And the presidents of the various clubs in football meet quite regularly to go over issues that they may be concerned with and stuff like that. So I want to just real quickly take my 45 seconds, and anybody else who didn't take theirs. I just want to really just say this. We have a wonderful youth program at Dendytown, at Western Stars. So much so that within our fraternity, we have what's known as the Dendytown Youth Academy. That organization, every other year, raises funds for us to take our children on a tour. And I think that's one of the positive things that can happen to our youth. Simply because even the ones that may be borderline, you got them overseas, you got a chance to interact with them outside of this 21 square miles. And I'm going to close with this. The biggest thing that I see in the clubs is that we need the man to be man. Because these young men will look up to us when we tell them, you can't do this and you can't do that. And as I said earlier, a lot of them are only using football as a means to get out of the house.
Again, I want, on behalf of the Department of Culture, I want to say thank you so much again for being present here this evening, and wish we could continue because I feel like we have only scratched the surface with this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Ambrosia, Mr. Dill, Mr. Samuels, Mr. Lewis, and Miss Tucker, because you're not Miss Trott, that's Miss Trott over there, pretty sure. There was Tucker right there, thank you very much. It has been an absolute privilege facilitating this evening's discussion. And like Ms. Tucker said, I hope that some more relationships can come out of your presence here this evening. Thank you very, very much.